Hello, continuing on with our reading of Alice A. Bailey's book, Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, Chapter 3, Certain Questions and Their Answers, answering the question of, can the fact of the soul be proved? Wrapping up that question, which is number 3 again, and then going on to question 4, talking about why is it important to study the race, which is the new psychology based on divine traits broken down into humanity and all beings, everything that is the underpinning of all the personality stuff, all the astrology stuff, all of the study of what makes up a person, the self with a capital S, why that's important, why that is actually valid and verifiable. It still remains important. And it's not about typecasting people. It's about understanding yourself so that you can live your path, that you can operate in your domain, and so that you can interact more harmoniously with the people around you, because you have that, you can now perceive and understand what lens another person is operating through. That's originally why the personality types and things were created, but a lot of people just thought that they were to be used to just put yourself in a box or to yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, the whole person, the monad, is everything, is all personalities, is all zodiac astrology types and everything. The bottom line is we don't know enough about this, and the study is bringing us into a whole picture of our whole person and our whole capability. And so one of those things is that we have this thing called a soul that we can get in rapport with and make contact to. It is a higher state of the mental plane. The soul is not just a religious facet. It's not just a imaginatory or a fabrication, is what this text is teaching us. That's something that can be contacted in order to step down divine or higher consciousness or intellectual activity, again, towards what you should be doing, what you could be doing, what we could be doing collectively. And it's very interesting to think that this is a process of evolution through evolution of the mind. From the point of view of esoteric psychology, evolution is the evolution of consciousness, by which the embedded fragment of the soul within the personality progressively identifies its spiritual source and becomes at one with it, unlocking certain gifts and talents and abilities along the way. And the idea is that those gifts, those talents, those abilities are going to save us from ourselves. All of this hate, all this competition, all of this division, all of this stupidity. So I'm going to share the screen again with the publisher's website as per usual, and read along there, or if you have the book, do what you do. We are on page 100 and continuing on here. When the hypothesis of the soul is accepted, when the nature of the spiritual energy which flows through the soul is admitted, and when the mechanism of the four centers is studied, we shall make rapid progress towards knowledge. When through meditation, experiment is made to produce creatively some of the beauty contacted, some of the ideas revealed, and some of the patterns seen, we shall learn to cultivate genius and to understand how to train people to work creatively. Then much will be discovered about the centers in man where the divine principle has its dwelling and from which the Christ within can work. The study of the superconscious must be undertaken, and not simply the study of the self-conscious or the subconscious. So this is the realm of psychology, is teaching us about all the things that make us abnormal. And then that last section was really cool. In addition to telling us why our creative artists are so vitally needed right now, it tells us also that psychology has been doing us a disservice by studying all of the ways that we are abnormal and subpar. And the new studies will be about studying the nature of genius and the superhuman, our extraordinary talents and abilities that are currently just being explored in private experiments. So we're going to learn how to train people to work creatively and manifest superconscious ability Through this study, carried forward with an open mind, modern psychology will eventually arrive at a recognition of the soul. Again, this section is asking us, can the fact of the soul be proved? Yes, through study and modern psychology, which is the incorporation of both esoteric psychology and traditional psychology. The range of investigation is so wide that I can only indicate some of the possible fields of research. 1. The investigation of the nature of genius and its definite and specialized cultivation. 2. Training in the creative work and a study of the difference between this kind of training and a training for vocational work. There's a difference between this kind of training and training for vocational work. Creative work proves the fact of the soul. Vocational training demonstrates the type of the personality. So again, with everybody just going out there and getting a job, or just kind of throwing something at the wall when you're in college and just deciding what you're going to end up doing is it's not very intuitive. It's not very intelligent the way that we're currently going about the nature of work. But that's because as it stands right now in our system, our vocation is just something that matches our personality. Can you sit at a desk all day? Can you stare at a screen and type on a keyboard? Are you good at typing on a keyboard? No. Are you better at working on cars? Then you're going to be a mechanic and someone else is going to go to the office. But this is saying that you have creative potential based on the fact of your higher mind and what your soul is able to transmit from the divine and translate, and perhaps you being in that lane would be better still, and you'd be more engaged, enthused, and inspired to have a vocational training that is not just about what you can manage to do for 8 hours a day, and so on. 3. Scientific investigation of the powers in man, with particular attention to telepathy. It will be found that telepathic work is from mind to mind or from soul to mind and does not necessarily imply brain-to-brain communication and contact. This is one of the most promising fields of investigation, though it still presents much difficulty. The fact of the existence of the soul will not be proved through the medium of telepathy until after the year 1945. By that time, an event will have happened in the world and a particular new teaching will have been given, which will put the entire subject of telepathic phenomena in a new light. Again, 1945 was the future when this was written, because this was written in 1936. First printing was in 1936. And we are now in 2024. So again, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this having manifested or came to pass, because that's an interesting part of looking back and reading the old text and the present day. It's not just about reading the newest book and publication. It's about studying the old teachings, the ancient teachings, that which has been done before, which all this new stuff is an offshoot of anyway, and testing what they knew, because these people were making their own conjectures and prophecies of sorts. So it's like, let's see how much this is jiving and how much we're aligned to what they were saying. And I think that that is a fascinating way to approach it. I'll grab a sip of water. I'm going to continue without my glasses because my eyes are hurting. All right, so we're on the 4th one. Again, these are some of the ranges of investigation that will help to prove the fact of the soul. These are just a few. We're on number 4, the scientific training of clairvoyance and the intelligent development of clairvoyant powers by the intelligentsia of the world leaves as yet much to be desired, but it will come as a result of mind control and illumination. So, and then the study of clairvoyant powers by the intelligentsia, check a few videos back. There's much said already about that. Men will learn to subject the mechanism of the body to a downflow of spiritual energy and stimulation, and thus will bring the powers of the psychic nature into activity. And the old method of sitting for development in order to awaken the centers will be seen as dangerous and unnecessary. This is very interesting. The old method of sitting for development, like meditation, perhaps, to awaken the centers, because I'm also doing the University of Metaphysics coursework, and there's just a section that was talking about meditation, and how meditation, yoga specifically, hatha yoga, was the type of yoga of the 5 major types of yoga that are done in order to make contact with the absolute, the all-mind God. And one of the ways to do that through yoga is moving the body, obviously the traditional Western way that we know of yoga. Then there's other types, so not the hatha yoga, I'm sorry, I think bhakti, I'm not really sure. So you're sitting through meditation and making contact with your chakras, root to crown, and awakening the kundalini one by one to awaken each psychic center in order to unlock some of that energy at each stage and then awaken to your spiritual development. That method, being old and dangerous and unnecessary, is actually would be a step forward, because there's still many people that are trying to do this and talking like this. So I think this would be also a very interesting development or process of proving the soul without going about it in the way that people have been learning to do it through whatever ways is available or was available, obviously back in 1936. And then to current day, if we haven't made much progress here, because people are still doing it in a very surface level or commercial or spiritually irresponsible, which that's a thing, way, then perhaps there's another way that we could do this. Training clairvoyance, training superconscious development in a way that is less dangerous and more practical than our old methods that we know of. In the field of modern psychology, we can look for a gradual recognition of the fact of the self. I like to say the self with a capital S. This is the true self, not the self that we learn from our friends and our TV and our yada, yada, yada. Our family's imprint upon us, or anyone else who projects who we are onto us. I say that's lowercase self. Hang on just one second. Sorry about that. Paused really quickly. Continuing on. I'll start over right here. In the field of modern psychology, we can look for a gradual recognition of the fact of the self. The problem of the psychologist is to comprehend the relationship or the identity of that self with the soul. So this is interesting how they describe it. They're talking about the self as essentially the modern psychology, the current traditional psychology with personality, the basics, what your abnormalities are, what your psychological defects or your nature, nurture, all that make up. And then their next level to go to, they will gradually evolve to identifying that self with the soul. It is, however, from, oh my gosh, let me pause again. 1 second, let me get myself together. All right. Apologies. I think that's my last time pausing it. I'm getting over a cold and I needed some tea. Lemon echinacea. That's the one. That's the one right there. That's what you want to get. Let's do this. All right. It is, however, from the field of science that the greatest help will come. How fascinating that proof of the soul, the greatest help towards proving that is going to come from the field of science. The fact of the soul will eventually be proved through the study of light and of radiation and through a coming evolution in particles of light. Through this eminent development, we shall find ourselves seeing more and penetrating deeper into that which we see today. One of the recognized facts in the realm of natural science has been the cyclic change in the fauna and flora of our planet. Animals, plentiful and familiar many thousands of years ago, are now extinct, and by means of their bones we endeavor to reconstruct their forms. Flowers and trees that once covered the surface of our planet have now entirely disappeared, and only their fossilized remains are left to indicate to us a vegetation vastly different to that which we now enjoy. Man himself has changed so much that we find it difficult to recognize Homo sapiens in the early primitive races of the far distant past. This mutability and obliteration of earlier types is due to a major factor among many. The quality of the light, which promotes and nurtures growth, vitality, and fertility in the kingdoms of nature, has changed several times during the ages. And as it has changed, it has produced corresponding mutations in the phenomenal world. How fascinating is this sentence? So the quality of light that promotes and nurtures growth. We know that sun is one of them, and we see that in plants and how it causes them to grow. This says that that quality of the light that we are surrounded by has been changing over the ages, and it's causing mutations in the phenomenal world. From the standpoint of the esotericist, all forms of life on our planet are affected by three types of light substance, and at the present time, a fourth type is gradually making its presence felt. Thus, again, at the present time was in 1936. So this fourth kind has been gradually mixing into the three types of light substance we previously knew to exist. And let's go on to see what those types of light are. First, the light of the sun. Second, the light in the planet itself. Not the reflected light of the sun, but its own inherent radiance. So our planet has its own inherent radiance. Then there's a seeping in, if I may use such a phrase, from the astral plane. And this is the realm of the emotions, where people have everything that is in our headspace that is of a emotional stimulant. And that could be anything, all the things that we're thinking, our fear thoughts, our lust thoughts, our anger thoughts, our excitement and love and devotion thoughts. All those things are in the astral plane. You can think of it as our dream state, the dream state where you go and you create and anything is possible, same as the place where all of our thoughts go when we think them. When we feel them. And then the last one is saying that it's from our mental plane. So here again, altogether, a light seeping in from the astral plane, a steady and gradual penetration of the astral light and its fusion with the other two types of radiance. So this is interesting when we're talking about light and energy, the energy that helps us grow and makes us nurtured in order to have vitality and fertility and all of these things. It's saying that it's influenced by our emotional soup and by the natural radiant light of this plane, this planet. And again, in the last video, I talked about how we see that we're having different sunsets and skylines and stuff with these different plasmic ray looking red and different hues in the sky. The radiance of our planet has even shifted in the space of the 33 years that I've been here. So imagine, wait, let's do some fast math. Let's do some maths and have another bit of tea. Ew, I did the wrong number. 88 years ago that this book was written. Fifty-three years since I was born. I don't even know what I'm mathing. I just like to pull out my calculator every now and then. All right, so how fascinating. So the light of the sun, the astral light, the planet's light, and then finally the fourth light that has been gradually seeping in is a light which is beginning to merge itself with the other three types and which comes from a state of matter which we call the mental plane, a light in its turn reflected from the realm of the soul. So what's interesting and fascinating for me here is that this one, the mental plane, which again, mental plane, intelligent activity, fifth ray, third ray, activity is intelligent use of the mind faculties. And again, of course, it's at the seat of the soul where the mind can contact the soul energy to do all of this that we're talking about in the first place. So it's saying that that has been gradually coming in, but before, the astral plane energy was seeping in. And what we've also seen simultaneous to that is a lot of activity going on this planet with pushing more angst, more fear, more trauma, more pain, suffering, and negative energy, you could say, into the astral realm, with more division and fighting, wars, and hypersexuality in the industry that's gone completely unchecked and is hopefully now in the process of getting checked to some degree. We have criminals in our entertainment field and our governments. Why? And so all that energy of the astral light, which is an energy that is supposed to be helping us to be nurtured for our growth, has actually been perhaps stunting our growth. Well, now in comes a fourth light or energy that can nurture us and keep us on that path towards growth and vitality. And that's the light from the soul. That's the light from the mental plane, is coming in and fusing with the other three, where before it might have been causing this imbalance that we're seeing outpictured in our society. So it's again fascinating to see in 1936 how this is explained, and then 2024 how it's been observed, how we can observe it today.